Okay. Sorry, some technical difficulties. Okay, today we are going to talk about an effective DA configuration management with Git and Drush. This is mainly, we are not going to talk or go in details about Git. I'm assuming that most of you already know a little bit of that. Same for Drush, but mostly how to overcome the issues when there is a team working and avoid losing work from other team member or our own work while we work in teams of big projects. So my name is Blanca, and I work at Open Software. It's placed on Ottawa, and this is the agenda that we are going to be touching points today. So first we are going to talk a little bit of why we are using configuration management in DA, the difference with features, the configuration and version controllers, deployment workflow, how to configure the Settings.php so the configuration management can work, some tips on troubleshooting, and some commands for the terminal and the differences with the configuration user interface and the export and import configuration. So I don't know how many of you work on Drupal 7, but if you remember before, to be able to move one set of functionality from one environment to another, it was a bit painful. The reason for that, and almost if a lot of developers were using features for that, and I remember that everyone was like, oh, features is really difficult to use. I'm trying to move this functionality from one environment to another. And features is not to blame. The reason for that, it was because features wasn't created really for that. To move database configuration, it wasn't the main functionality, but because there was nothing to do that, developers started adapting features, creating patches to be able to do that, to move configuration from one database to another database. And now in Drupal 8, we have something called configuration system, that what it does, it moves the configuration that we have in a database to YAML files, convert that to YAML files, so it's easy to move all those YAML files to another environment and be able to move from those YAML files to the database again in another environment. So I don't know, can you see that? There is, if you have internet, you can open the slides. It's online. It's slides.com. If you Google it, like slides, Blanca Esqueda configuration management, you will be able to open the slides. So there are the difference between what are the features versus configuration in Drupal 7 and Drupal 8. Before, to export the complete site from one environment to another, it wasn't something possible in Drupal 7. No, even Drupal 7 core only plus features. You can see that now in Drupal 8 we have that ability. The same for export select configuration items. Drupal 7 core wasn't able to do it, but with features we had the possibility to take or group or package a specific functionality, a slider or whatever functionality you were working on, and move it to another environment. If we can see now in Drupal 8, the core does that. We don't need an extra model for do that. The last three, one is for package configuration, and that's a no for Drupal 8, but we still have features, so that's the real function of features. So yeah, it's not for Drupal 8 core, but we can still use features for that as well. There is this one that is another no, like reuse configuration in other projects. When I talk about environment, that means that you cannot move configuration from one side to another site that is not the same. You can move configuration between the same site, clone of the same site. Obviously, out of the box is a no, but if you are in the need to move configuration from, I don't know, site A to site B, you can do it overriding the site UUID. And the last one is the collaborate on the same project. Drupal 8 core say no, but I don't agree with that one. I believe like if everyone in a team follow the same steps of how to commit changes, how to push the configuration and all that, that's a yes. So what's one of the advantages to have configuration in code? That means a version control as Git. It can be any other one of your preference, but in this case, we are going to be talking about Git. And well, those four alone is a really big advantage. Be able to compare configuration states. What was on my database, speaking about configuration, now compared to last week, or when someone did a change. Keeping a history of configuration changes, that's a good sample as well. If something is broken now, why is broken now, I'm able to go back and see all the versions that are on my changes and kind of discover what went wrong or what changed, and now I'm having those issues, or maybe not even for that, like going back and try to pull certain configuration that now I need in another environment, or even to restart or roll back that configuration. So that allows us as well to move configuration between sites, as we just talked about. Before, it was a bit difficult to move configuration from one site to another. You had to be playing around with features. Something went wrong. We have a white screen, so something is going on. You had to do migration scripts, or even the usual copy and paste manually. So now we pass everything to YAML files. We commit those, and it's easier to move from one environment to another. And I mentioned it already, but reverting to previous configuration states in case it's needed. So we are going to talk a little bit of a deployment workflow. Let's say this is an ideal. It's not the only one. Of course, every company has their own deployment workflow. But I see this as the base for all of them. So we have the local environments. Those are the developers, designers, anyone that is working in the site and need to do changes on the configuration of the site. Then we have the development environment. In this one is where you have the merge of all the changes that everyone does in a project. Then we have the stage environment. The stage environment is where the client or the owner of the project can go and review the changes that once that you decide, okay, I have a stable version of whatever I'm doing, I'm going to move it to a stage so I can have approval from the client, from the publisher, the persons that are reviewing the work. And this line means, like that, that the stage works with the code that we have on the development environment, but with the data that we have in production. The reason for that is because most of the time when you are testing your own work, even we have the bill and we can generate nodes, content types, menu, but it's not the real data, the one that we are testing. But if we pull the database from production and we try our code with that, there are more possibilities that we are going to catch one error before all that goes to production. And we have the production or live environment. That's what everyone sees. So when I say that this is an ideal workflow, it's because it not always happens that way. It depends on the project, but usually this has to be the way. The local has to be able to pull and push from the dev environment, but from the dev environment to production, you never are pulling anything back. Always is one way. The only thing that you pull to a stage is the database only to test the data with the code changes. So that's the ideal workflow. There is one model called rate-only mode. That what it does for Drupal 8 is that it doesn't allow you to do configuration changes. Unfortunately, as I say, that will be only in an ideal world. There are times that the end user needs to do changes. Maybe they have access to create or to modify a content type or something. But if not, you can use that model. It's for that. And there are tips that if you open the slides, you will be able to read some more information. But everything talking about the deployment workflow. Let me go back a little bit. So all these environments are for the same site. So whatever you are doing here is the same site or the same changes that you are gonna move to the development, to the stage, to the production. And any moment you are working in different sites, always is the configuration of the same site. As I mentioned, you can override that, but it's kind of going out of the box with how the deployment workflow works. But you have to keep in mind that if you are trying to move configuration from another site to your site, there is going to be an issue. There is going to be an error message about telling you that the site's unique identifiers doesn't match. But there is one variable there that you can use to override configuration as well directly on Settings.php. So now let's talk about how we make all this work, right? On our file Settings.php, the first step is that you are going to define the config directory. Usually, recommendation is to be outside the root, so anyone can access it. It's going to be more secure, and because remember, it's the configuration of your site. It's pretty much the template or layout of your site. All the menu configuration, the admin configuration, everything is going to be on those YAML files. So for security, keep it outside the root. You can have more than one, but usually with one is enough. So you keep always the same workflow. Also, there are hostings that they have their own configuration directories. If you have worked with Acquia or Pantheon or hosting of that type, When you install, they add one script on your settings.php to manage if you are using Aquadex as a sample, to manage the database connection and all that. I don't work for them, but I believe that inside those includes that those script does. There is the definition of one configuration directory, because if you don't put your line at the bottom of those includes, then it's not gonna work. So save you a lot of work, and always, if you are working with hostings like that, always declare your config directory at the bottom, and it's gonna make your life easier. At least you are not gonna spend hours trying to figure out why the configuration folder is no you are not seeing the changes reflected on your user interface. So there are more considerations, like if your hosting tells you which path to use, you can use it, but as I say, you can use the one that you want. That's open to you. And you have to make sure, like, okay, I added this to my settings.php, now I want to make sure that that folder is being tracked by Git. If you don't track it, you're never gonna see your changes on the dev environment, and that's for all the teams. So the same settings.php that is on dev has to be the same that the rest of the team has to be using, so the configuration directory is the same. So tips for troubleshooting, make sure like the settings.php really is being tracked. Sometimes it can be because the Git ignore or Git update index, the changes are not being committed or pushed. So only make sure like is whatever you have in your local for settings.php is what it is in dev, and is what your other coworkers or team members have there. So configuration, the user interface. I would recommend to use the terminal, and most of the time I try to use the Drush or Git or the terminal, but we are going to talk about what we have on the user interface and why in this case I use both. We have the synchronization screen. That's good because we have a div bottom. I know you are not able to see it, sorry, but when you click in there, you are able to see exactly what changed, what is on the database right now, and what is on my YAML files, the ones that were pushed. So you can decide, okay, this change is something that is needed or no. You can go and have a visual kind of comparison and decide if you want to import that or not. That's for the synchronization screen. Then we have a user interface for the import. You have two tabs. One to import a complete zip folder that contains all the site configuration. So let's say you are not using Git, you are not using Drush. So what you do in your development environment or local environment, you export your configuration in a zip file, and then you come here and you import directly. So the full import, what it's gonna do is gonna upload all your YAML files and put it on the configuration synchronization, and then you can do the import from the other screen. And we have the option to do a single file as well. So let's say I want only to move the configuration of one view. You can go and get that YAML file, put it on in your single item, and it's gonna be imported right away. The same for the configuration export. You are able to export everything in one zip file, and you are able to export only one item at a time. Unfortunately, we still don't have the option to select more or more than one, is or all or only one. Oh, unless you want to go one by one on the script. So now let's gonna talk about the why it's important, or what steps we need to follow to not lose someone else's work. When you are working alone, doesn't matter, right? As far as you know, when you commit and that you are pushing your changes to dev, you are gonna be fine because you are the only person working. But the main thing to remember here is that when you use the configuration export, the folder that contains all the YAML files is deleted. So everything inside that folder is deleted and then is recreated. It's not like the changes are being used updated. So it is why if we don't take care of how we do the commits, when we do the configuration imports or the configuration exports, we are on the risk of lose someone else's work or own work. The good thing about having Git is that all the time we can come back, right? And if we lose someone else's work, we can decide, okay, we need to go back. You can check the logs on your Git, and okay, we have that functionality in this version, so you can kind of pull those files. But why to spend time doing that? And if you cache that, like, oh, I lost someone else's work right away, it's gonna be easy, and maybe it's gonna take you just a few minutes to put that back. But if you don't, and the time starts passing, and then, I don't know, 1 week later, 2 weeks later, it's gonna be really hard to come back and do those changes. Plus, if you want to be a good coworker, why to make everyone's life more difficult. So we have to to export the configuration. The first thing that we are going to do on our local environments is to import the configuration before we push to another environment. If there is broken configuration that breaks the site, we are not going to push anything, and that's one gold rule. You always, before the merge with dev, when you pull from there, you are going to import in your local. When the merge with your changes and dev happen, after that you have to do the configuration import. Why? Because you need to go and review the site and make sure like it's working and one functionality is still there. If something happens, if a dependency is missing of something, then you don't push to dev, and you have to make sure that every issue is resolved in local. Never you push something with an error to dev. So this is how things work. When you use Drush config import to the folder, to the configuration folder, the configuration folder gets deleted. Everything is deleted from there, and then from the database, the YAML files are created and put it in that folder. That's exactly the same functionality using Drush that the functionality that we have on the config export all on the user interface. That will be the first step when we are in local. Then the next one, obviously, is gonna be to commit our changes. We already moved everything what we did, and it was on the database to YAML files. So now we have to commit those changes. And when we do a git pull, that will be the next step. Whatever that was in my local, because already I did the commit, is gonna be merged with what is coming from there to what we are pulling from there. Usually there is no conflict. Git is pretty good for that. But if for some reason there is a conflict, then you have to resolve that manually or using any other tools. But as I say, if there is a conflict, you always manage that in local. You are not going to push anything if you know that there is a conflict already. So when you do the git pull and you resolve all your issues, now we have one configuration folder with all the YAML files that contain the work that we did and the work that it was on dev and everyone else did. So we commit that. Then we do a config import. We have, again, in this folder, all the YAML files with our work and some other people's work. But before I push to dev, I have to do an import in my local to make sure there is no errors and dependencies are there and everything is working perfectly. Once that I do that, and I'm sure that everything is correctly, then you are almost good to go. In here, this is the Drush command to do the config import, but there is something to note. When you do the Drush config import, usually you can see even the difference of one YAML file versus your database. But if there is an error with dependencies, the Drush is not gonna let you know that. I don't know why, but it doesn't give you that error or that warning. But the user interface does. So the only step that I suggest, usually when there is new people in the team or something, or that I'm teaching them how to use the workflow, I ask them, this step, do it with the user interface, because if there is an error reporting, the user interface is going to tell you right away. And with Drush, it can have false positive, like it's going to tell you, okay, everything went well, but there is still something going on in there. So be careful with that. As I say, there is not always, it's just weird situations, but anyway, at least at the beginning when you start using it, just remember that. That's the only step that I recommend to do directly on the user interface. Then we have because the configuration changes can involve, like maybe a new model was installed or disabled, or it was change of configuration on the admin screens. Then we have to do a Drush update DB. If you are not using the terminal, you can do an update.php. But do it. You don't lose anything to do it. Most of the time, maybe it's gonna be like you don't need, or you are up to date. You don't need any database update. There are no pending database update. But write that, it's gonna take you maybe, 10 seconds, and at least you are gonna be sure that if something needed to be done was done. If not, that's okay too. And then finally, you have the git push. With the git push, what you are doing is everything that now you know that you have the work of other people, you have your work on YAML files, then you move it to dev. That's not everything. There is one step more that you have to do, and that's one gold rule, at least on the teams that I work. If you export, then you have to import. That means, like, if I'm exporting from local and moving all my changes to dev, I have to make sure that on dev I'm gonna do the import. So these are all the steps, and it seems like it's really easy, and it is easy, like, to remember all of them, but believe me, I've been in teams that even after being working 1 month or 2 months, someone forget to do something. If you forget to do the export and then you do the rest of the steps, what's gonna happen is you are gonna delete all your work. If you do all that and you forget to do the the import to your database and then you do the push, then most probably there is going to be a configuration issue when you push. So every step is there for a reason, and maybe you are not gonna, or you are gonna think, oh, why I'm gonna do a git push if I use push and I'm sure that whatever is in there is what I have. You will be surprised that you don't know if other people already did changes or not. So always make sure to follow those, and you will be fine. So those are the 3 things to remember. The first one is first export and then pull. The second one, import before you push. And the third one, if you export, you have to import on them. So those are the 3 main rules to do the, like to make sure that you are working successfully in a team. For big projects, it's really helpful. For import the configuration, it's exactly the same idea of the steps that we saw, but the steps change a little bit. They are less, but usually it's only the export, commit, git pull, then import, and then Drush update DB. Let me just mention something else. There is one script, the content synchronization script, screen, this one. So what I recommend to the people that is starting to work with configuration synchronization is, if you are gonna push or move your changes from local to dev, the first thing that you have to do is go and check dev and make sure that this screen is empty. There is no changes pending on the YAML files. If that screen is empty, that means that that everything is fine, but if not, that means that someone moved configuration from local to dev and they didn't do the import. If you push your changes and override those, then you are gonna delete their changes. So the first step, go and check that this screen is good on the development environment or the environment that you are gonna move your configuration changes. If that screen is empty, you are good to go. If that screen is not empty, then ask someone use move configuration and they didn't finish their work. The next step is doing the steps that we did. And then once that you do all those steps and push your changes to dev, again, home, do the import and make sure that this screen is empty again. If you start with an empty screen and you ended up with an empty screen, then the configuration process, at least on your end, is complete. That's my recommendation, at least for interns or people that is starting to use the DB configuration. Now, if we check the steps that we follow, of course, these are only like suggestions when you want to merge your work, but you can play with those. What you want to do? You want to do a fresh clone from dev? Then what you are gonna do? You are gonna use pull and override whatever is on your YAML files and import that. So you get a fresh clone from dev. You want you don't want to merge, but instead you want that dev has only your changes and not your co-workers or team member changes. Then you don't merge. You just put your changes, override the YAML files, and do the import on dev. Is there any question? Or I explain so good, or I don't? Come on, I can give you some options. What about multi-site? How that will work with multi-site?
Have you? Can you compare? I mean, I've used configuration in D7 quite a bit, although the module is.
Features?
No, I hate features.
Okay.
So.
There's a module called configuration management.
Yeah.
7. It's a back port from the one in
right.
It's a lot different.
It's a lot different, and it's twitchy, but it does a lot of nice work. I was wondering if anybody knew the difference between that one and the D8 rough.
No,
Did you use it in D7?
No, I didn't. What I used in this time was a lot of the migration model and features.
Okay.
But no, not that one. I started using configuration management until PA.
Okay. It's more or less the same principle, you know, you save configuration to files and then you...
The UI is different.
Yeah.
And it exports to a bunch of files, not YAML files.
No, that's correct. Right.
Another kind of file, I don't remember.
But they're under Git, so...
They're under Git.
Same principle.
And there are some bugs. I remember
Yeah.
there's a widget where I configured the type of image, and I had to do it manually. I don't know why it
Didn't work.
didn't import.
Now, if you want to work this with multi-site, it's the same idea. In every settings.php, you are gonna put your configuration folder, declaration there, and that will be up to you if you want to use different configuration for each site, or if you want to use the same one. That will involve more Git work and knowledge, because then you can kind of cherry pick which commit goes to one folder and which ones go to another folder. I don't know. I was expecting more questions. So, okay.
Have you found any, I guess, workflows or practices that have helped stop different developers from stepping on each other's feet with the configuration management? I mean, there's like the pull, but in terms of working practices for working in different sections of the site, or
Yeah.
kind of like from that aspect.
You know, usually, or at least before, that was more like an idea, like if everyone works in a different section of the site, maybe you do views, maybe you do blocks or things like that, maybe they are not gonna overlap themselves on the YAML files and all that. And that's true, that's one option, but to be honest, there are projects that if you are doing one content type, maybe another person needs to go there and do a change in there as well. So and it is why all these steps, because it was kind of the way to handle those overlaps. And pretty much what you are talking right now, it will be the Git merge that is done when you do a Git pull. That will be sometimes if, let's say, I'm working in a content type and I add one field with one specific field type, and someone else in the same content type adds the same field but with a different field type, it's going to be a conflict. And that's up to you or to the last person that is pulling to check the conflict and decide which one is the correct one. As I said, you have to manage all those on your local before you push. That's, at least on my experience, that has been the best way to handle those issues and those overlaps, more than having someone working in different places. Because even there has been cases that, yeah, there is a designer, maybe he doesn't need to do a lot of content type changes or things like that, but if they don't follow this, the odds that person deleting other person's work is high.
There was one screen you're saying you have to look at the website to see if the person had made a change or something?
Yeah, there is a way to do that. On Git, you can check the Git logs.
I think he's referring to when you were saying look on dev first to see if there's any changes that are still left on dev before you're pushing from.
Thanks. You're going to have to help me out a little bit here because I'm new to.
That's the configuration screen on the user interface. If,
Right.
if there is a change on the YAML files that are not on the database, you are going to see their differences.
So, I'm like a command line kind of person. I'm wondering, couldn't you use something like curl or wget so I don't have to look at that screen? You could, from the command line, call wget and look. If there's nothing in there, then you're okay.
I don't know if there is a Drush command yet. The last time I checked, it wasn't, but I saw it was a preview div, but that's doing the config import. So if you do the Drush config import, the folder of your configuration, and then you add the preview div, it's going to show you the differences in a list, and then you can decide if you want to continue with the import or not. So that will be kind of like the terminal option for that.
Okay.
And now, if you want to go more technical, there is one table on the database that kind of keep all the kind of like a screenshot of all the database changes. So you can kind of get those and compare with whatever you have in your folder. Obviously, that will require a little more of work on your part. Instead of just do the preview div. Any more questions?
I think you had a slide in the beginning. It's been a few months since I started a D8 site. I just remember getting confused about setting up like the UUID, like that has to match something in the settings file. Is it?
That's for the site or for what? Sorry.
Yeah, for the site. Like,
So when there is a validation about, and maybe correct me if I'm thinking something else, validation about the site is because you can move configuration only from the same site to the same site.
Right.
Even in different environment. The reason for that validation is because if you move it from another site, it's gonna be conflict. Why? Because maybe the only configuration that gets updated is the one that is different. So let's say you have one content type, but the other site has other content types, it's gonna override whatever is in your site. So there are ways to overcome that, and you have to do it manually, but it's on your own risk. But that's for the DA site UUID validation. For this 7, I'm not so sure because I didn't use that. It wasn't on this 7, unless it's the same model that they were talking about. Another question? Okay, so there is a free Drupal 8 training. I'm gonna open one interface so I can show you, but I'm gonna finish with the announcements. So there is gonna be free Drupal 8 training. There is from Open, the company I work for. There is gonna be Drupal 8 Fundamental, Drupal 8 Model Development, and Teaming. You can go sign on the booth. And usually they are pretty good accommodating dates and times for people and can be online. Then another, we talk about configuration synchronization, and there is one model that we put in on Drupal.org about content synchronization. The same idea behind the configuration synchronization, having all the content moved to YAML files, be able to version those files, and be able to move that content between environments. It's pretty new, so I invite you to go download and play with it. I'm pretty sure it's gonna resolve a lot of issues when users or the project owners want to add real data on stage environments, but they don't want to work again and put that the same data on the live environments. And a lot of users So, but the same idea, the synchronization screen, you are gonna be able to see if a node changed, what changed, if a menu changed, if a user information changed, what is changed. The same, the import, the export, and even it has logs as well to see exactly what nodes, what menus, what users has content have changed. So you can go and check. Thank you. I know you already had some questions, and those are the references. Those are pretty good links to know more about the Git workflow or the configuration synchronization from the net. I researched quite a bit, and those are at least from my perspective, those are the best ones that give you more information about that and go more in detail. So that's my presentation, but let me open one.
Just let you know, the session officially ends in 4 minutes.
Okay, then we are good. Sorry. I was gonna show you some like a little bit like demo, but that's fine.
It's just a coffee break afterwards, so maybe you can allow yourself to do that.
Or if you want to see or you have questions, you can approach me, and I'll be happy to reply.
What's the URL again, where we can find this?
Oh, slides.com.
As in L-I-T-E?
Yes.
Slides, right?
Let me put it in.
Oh, S-L, slide, okay, S-L-I, oh, slide.com. Okay.
I'll put it on. I think we can put it on. You cannot put this bigger. I don't think so.
Control Shift plus 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 plus.
Yeah. I think I'm low. So if I do that.
Just Command Shift.
This is
I can't see anything.
well, slides.com v Esqueda va-configuration-workflow. If you Google it, it's easier. Just Google slides Blanca Esqueda configuration, and it's gonna be the first result on Google.